Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, Everlynn's Books and Tea. If you're new here, thank you for joining me, and if you've been here before, welcome back. I can't believe I'm saying this, but today we are playing our first TBR game of 2025, which is crazy. I'm recording this a little bit early. It's actually before Christmas. There's 8 days left in December, but this is the only time I really had that I could be sure I could sit down and record this entire thing. So I had to do it a little bit early, which is causing me somewhat of a dilemma because obviously I have not finished my December TBR yet, seeing that there is still 8 days left in the month. So I've been debating whether I should add a boarding pass, which is the token that if we land on it, we have to go all the way back to the beginning, or if I should just leave it as it is. I think what I'm going to do is give myself a little bit of a Christmas present and not add one to this game. We already have 4 on there, and there's still a chance I could finish this TBR. I've read a couple of books on it, but for me, the rule is I only have to start the books by the end of the month, so I usually have 2 books going at once. So if I read, there was 9 books last month, so if I read 7, then I only have to start the 2 more by the end of the month. So I think there's definitely a chance that I can do that. So we are just going to stick with the 4 boarding passes, and then I will reassess in February whether I have finished this TBR or not, and then go from there whether I can take one away for December or whether I'll have to add additional one for December. So we'll figure that out come our February TBR. So as far as the December TBR goes, I have it right here. We have read 2 books fully, started 2 more, one of which I'm in the middle of. So I had a prompt for a paranormal book, and I ended up reading Wisteria Wonders, I love this series. It's just such a fun, relaxed, laid-back series. I have so much fun with it. So I did complete this prompt. And then the other book I read was Catherine of Aragon, the True Queen, which was a series jar pull and the first book in her 6 Tudor Queen series. Definitely enjoyed this one. It's just so interesting reading a book that the author has written from a real life perspective. And I definitely have fun with this one and looking forward to reading the rest of the books in this series. The books I did not get to were The Last Graduate, definitely planning on reading this by the end of the month. The Eye of the World, the first book in the Wheel of Time series, I am halfway through, so we'll likely finish that one by the end of this month. And then I have not started The Dark Forest, which is the least likely one I am to read. If anything is going to stop me from completing this TBR, it'll probably be this one. And then Old Man's War, Happily Never After. Haven't gotten to those yet, but have high hopes that I can. Then I am going to read Jane Austen's The History of England and Charles Dickens' A Child's History of England, so I will finish that one. I have started Christmas Every Day by Beth Morin, so that one will be completed too. And then the last one again was The Last Graduate, which I'm definitely going to read this month. It's next on my list. All right, so that was December's TBR. For those of you curious when this video goes up how I ended up doing for December, I will try to remember to put a comment in the video description or one of those community posts, one or the other. I'll do my best to remember to do that. But today we are doing our January TBR. I'm super excited about this one. I'm hoping to get some good wintry reads on here, at least a couple, because my January reading game is going to be based on wintry reads. So we'll see how we go, but I am so excited about this. Today we are switching over to our winter game board, which I love. I made it last year and it's definitely one of my favorite game boards that I made. So let's pull that game board up, pull up the tokens we're going to put on it, and then we will randomize where we're going to place those tokens and see what our final game board for January is going to look like. So let's do that really quickly right now. All right, so here's our board. So the biggest thing that I noticed was the boarding passes are either way at the beginning or way at the end. So we'll see how that goes. The good thing is if I end up on one of those boarding passes, I do get to move up to the next stage of dice. So I start off with an 8-sided dice. If I land on the boarding pass, that means I get to go to a 12-sided die. I guess it's die, not dice. Anyway, so let's go ahead, bring up the game board again, and let's go ahead and do our first roll. All right, speaking of those boarding passes, guess what? That is what we landed on our first roll. We rolled a 5, landed on that boarding pass, and had to start at the beginning of the game. I don't get too upset though when this happens on the first roll because it means I now get to move up from an 8-sided to a 12-sided dice. So makes it all the better when it happens early in the game. We do have to pull a book out of our series jar though, so let's go ahead and grab that and see what we get for our first book of 2025. Here's our series jar. There are 37 series in here that I'm in the middle of. I'm actually in the middle of more, but for this game, I focus on these 37 series. And each time I complete one, I add a new series in here. So let's see what we get for our first book. I'm super excited. All right, let's go with this one here. So let's put the lid back on and see what we get for our first book. All right, so our first book for 2025 is going to be The Girl in the Tower. This is actually one I'm very excited about because this is a wintry read, so I can definitely get to this book in my reading game and, knock out 2 birds with 1 stone, whatnot. This is the second book in Catherine Arden's Winter Night trilogy, which is based on Russian folklore. It follows in the first book, this young girl who's the only one that is able to see these household spirits. And it's just a very atmospheric, very wintry feel. And I am super excited to get the second book onto this TBR. And it's just the perfect winter read from what I have heard the second book is as well. The first book definitely, and I've heard the second book is too. So hopefully that's true. And this will be our first book to start off January 2025 with. So let's go ahead and pull up that game board, grab our 12-sided die, and go ahead and do our second roll of the game. All right, this 12-sided die is already working out for us. We rolled a 11 and we landed on the penguin. So let's grab that bag and get ready to pull a prompt for our second book of the game. All right, so here's our little penguin bag. I know it has deer, but there's the penguin sticker up here that matches the board. So this is my favorite bag of the winter time because this is our seasonal bag. So it has our prompts that have to do with January, winter, and the 2 astrological signs in January, which are Capricorn and Aquarius. So let's go ahead and mix these prompts up and then we will get our first prompt for 2025. All right, let's see. Let's split the deck right there. And this is our first prompt for 2025. It's a winter prompt. And it is retelling of a fairy tale or mythology. All right, so I know which physical book I am going to choose for this, and it is Sleep Like Death by Kaylin Bayron, and this is a Snow White retelling. And you may realize that there is no book in here. That's because I have the book upstairs. I had started it, I think in maybe October, and only got through like the first 20 or 30 pages. And then ended up moving on to a different book, not because I didn't like this one, but because it was a new month and I really just wanted to get to the new TBR. So I'm going to put this back on this month's TBR. This will be our physical book choice for a retelling of a fairy tale. And this book follows Princess Eve, who is raised with the one goal of destroying the knight, who is an evil sorcerer who terrorizes Queen's Bridge with his wicked magic. And as she approaches her 15th birthday, she is ready for battle, but her mother, the Queen Regina, has started to act very bizarrely, talking to a strange mirror alone at night. Then the knight's messenger ends up showing up and shares with Eve a shocking truth about her past, and now Eve is not sure who she can trust or not. So I really enjoyed how this book started off, so I definitely wanted to get through and read it all, so that is why I'm adding it to this TBR. And then for the Kindle book choice, we're sticking with the theme of a fairy tale retelling of Snow White and going with Snow So White by C. Gockel. This is the first book in her Urban Magic and Folklore series. It was released back in 2022. So the main character in this book is Sherry, who lives in this village called Somer, which is very far away from the city where the queen lives. And here, magical humans and animals are welcome, and everyone is hidden from the Queen's sight by Jack Frost, who is this local ghost who is able to blur the Queen's mirror with snow and ice. But Jack's spell starts to fail, and the Queen is able to lay eyes on Summer, and she wants nothing more than to abduct all of Summer magicals. And even if she has to fight, she is willing to do that to bring them all to her. So, to save her village from war, Cherry strikes a deal and she sets off on a quest. And if she fails, she'll end up losing more than her life. So, now we'll have a choice of 2 Snow White retellings for this prompt. So, I'm excited because they also could be good for wintry reads as well. So, Snow So White by Seagockle will be our Kindle book choice. All right, this is going really well so far. I have gotten some good reads that I think will do well for winter. But let's go ahead, bring up the game board, and do this third roll. Alright, this game is going well. We rolled a 10 and again landed on the penguin. So let me grab those prompts one more time and see what seasonal prompt we get for our third roll of the game. Alright, let's mix these up real quick. Alright, and then we are going to split the deck here. And then this is our second prompt for our third book. And this time we have an astrological prompt that is Capricorn, and it is a debut book by an author. So since January is the first month of the year, that's where the debut book comes from. So let's go ahead and find a book that is the author's first published book. All right, so that took me a minute, but the book we are going with is The Ghost in the Snow by Tamara Seiler Jones. This is her debut novel, published back in 2004, but it was her first book. This is also the first book in the series that kind of combines forensics and fantasy and kind of like that thriller suspense. The book follows Dubrick, who has this ability to see ghosts, and he works as head of security for Castle Fedora. And while he's there, he has started to see these brutally murdered servant girls. And of course, he's the only one that can see that. And he comes to realize that there is a silent killer afoot, and he's the only one that knows that. So now he must figure out who is killing these girls and bring them to justice. So that will be our physical book for our debut novel prompt, Ghost in the Snow by Tamara Seiler Jones. All right, let me see what I can find on my Kindle side. All right, so on our Kindle side of things, we have a couple of options, which I think I've narrowed it down to the one I wanted. We have The House Witch, which is a debut novel by, I don't even know how to pronounce this name, Della Mayhawk. This is book 1 in a fantasy series. It's kind of like a cozy fantasy series featuring witches. Then we have a totally different genre, Killing Floor by Lee Child. This is actually the first book in the Jack Reacher series, which is a very long series. And then we have Lost by Donald Tyner, which is her debut novel and the first book in a fantasy series called Caelian, Caelian. So these are 3 options. So I don't think I'm going to go with the Jack Reacher book because I'm not ready to start a long series like that quite yet, because I have several long series in my series jar I want to get through first. So it comes down between a cozy fantasy, and this is a fantasy set at a school. And, you know, I love my school settings, so we are going to go with Lost. Lost follows Sadie, who was orphaned at birth and is the only Caelian at St. Vincent's who doesn't already have a magical talent, it sounds like. And her boyfriend ends up being murdered as the victim of a anti-Caelian hate crime. And as she struggles to find her place in the world, she meets Keon, who is also Caelian, and who kind of makes her feel strangely alive whenever she's with him. She ends up finding herself on the run with Keon when her magical talent, which is this rare latent talent, finally is exposed, and him, her, and some of her friends are now being hunted by a dangerous egomaniac determined to use her power to establish Kalian dominance. So now Sadie must face a choice: hide and stay lost, or fight and accept her new reality. So this will be our Kindle book choice for our debut novel. Again, this is book 1 in the series, so we'll see how book 1 is and see if I am going to add on this series to my series list, which is getting really long. But I think this may only be a trilogy. I could be entirely wrong about that. All right, so Lost by Donnell Tyner will be our Kindle book choice. All right, moving on to our 4th roll of the game. So far, this game is going well. Let's see what we get. I spoke a little bit too soon. We rolled a 2 and landed on a boarding pass. So we will be going back to the beginning of the board. The good news is we only have 3 books on this TBR so far, so not terrible. And we get to move up to a 20-sided die now. So let's go ahead, grab our series jar, and choose our 4th book of the game. Oh, that's not it. Here is our series jar, so let's go ahead and see what we get for our 4th book of the game. Hopefully we get a good one and not a long one. I would like to take a little bit of a break from the Wheel of Time. Alright, here we go. Here is our book. Let me put this over here. And let's go ahead and open this. Alright, we have Cassandra Clare's The Red Scrolls of Magic, which is book 1 in... Honestly, I don't know what this side series is. I'll put it up here. This book is part of her Mortal Instrument series universe. So I don't know too much about this book. I know it follows Alec and Magnus, and they move or travel to Paris and rent an apartment together. And then I don't know if they're tracked down by demons or what happens, but that's okay, because at least I know the 2 main characters from reading the first couple books of the main Mortal Instrument series. And yeah, so we will add this book on to our TBR. It's been on before and I didn't get to it. Hopefully I will get to it this time around. All right, let's go ahead and do our 5th roll. All right, a 6, not terrible, and we landed on our new release jar, so we're going to grab that. So this jar has our new releases that we add quarterly into here. So all the books in here were either released last year or will be released in January. So let's go ahead and see what our book is going to be from our new release jar. So there's 8 books I add each season. All right, so here is the book, and the book that we'll be reading is The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt. So this is actually coming out, or did come out, I'm not sure. Let me look that up real quick. I know it was on this winter release I did a couple months ago, so it's either coming out this year or in January. So yeah, so it came out on December 3rd, and it is a kind of fantasy, magical realism, historical fantasy book, and if you guys have been watching, I'm really enjoying my historical fantasy book, so I'm excited to try out this one. So this book follows Harriet Hunt, who has been completely alone since her father disappeared. The garden is her only company that she cares for very carefully, tending to the magic of its lush, fantastical plants. And she enjoys the solitude because outside of her Sunnyside house, magic awaits. So when suspicion of her father's disappearance comes back on her, she ends up marrying to protect herself, and her husband may actually be worse than her father. She starts to realize that there is a dark plot that she is integral to, created by the men around her. And to discover the truth, she has to channel her magical garden's power. So this book is set in, I think, the 1860s in London, so I'm interested to see how this is. I think this is the debut, this is the sophomore novel of this author. She released The Witches at the End of the World back in 2023, so we'll give this a shot and see what the book is like. I'm excited about this one. All right, this TBR is really coming together. So let's go ahead and do our 6th roll and see what we get. This time we rolled an 8, a little bit better, and we landed on a tree. So let's grab that prompt bag and get our, 3rd prompt of the game for our 6th roll. All right, so here's the tree bag. It actually does have trees on it. So let's grab these prompts, which are plot prompts. So these have prompts that have to do with the plot of the book. There's also some miscellaneous prompts in here, and then some series prompts. These ones are upside down. All right, let's go ahead and mix these up. See what we get for our 6th book of the game. All right, let's split the deck right about here. All right, we have a plot prompt, and it is a book that matches the current season. I'm getting so lucky with these prompts. I wanted some wintry reads, and the game is giving me that. Hopefully I don't run out of wintry reads at this point. All right, I'm going to look through all my books and see what I have left that are set in winter. All right, I was able to find 2 books that are set in winter. This is Otherworldly by F.T. Lukens. It's set in a region that has been stuck in winter for 5 years, and people here believe that supernatural is real because of this, but Ellery, the main character, thinks that there's got to be a scientific explanation for that. And then Nox is the other main character, who is from the other world and a magical assistant sent to help humans who make crossroad bargains. But one day, crossroad demons end up coming for Nox, and he panics, runs, and has this chance encounter with Ellery, who helps fend off his attackers. So now the 2 of them need to kind of make a deal. Nox needs to make a deal with a human who can tether him to this realm, and Ellery needs to figure out how to stop this winter to help her family. So that's our first option. And then our second option is The Glass Woman by Carolyn Leah. And this book is set in 1686 Iceland, so obviously cold, and follows Rosa, who is betrothed to John Erickson and is sent to a remote village to live. And there she finds that her husband is a man who will not speak at all of his recently deceased first wife, and the villagers view Rosa's arrival with suspicion. And so she's kind of isolated, living in this little village. There are strange sounds coming from her locked attic, and she wonders, who does the mysterious glass figure she is given represent? And why did the villagers talk of the coming winter darkness in hushed tones? So kind of like a historical mystery. So I really want to read this book. I keep putting it on my TBR, but not getting to it. And I think this is the month I'm going to get to it, January. So this book just sounds very intriguing. I'm very curious of what this mystery is every time I read the synopsis of this book. So let's add The Glass Woman by Caroline Leah to our January TBR. It feels like the perfect book to read in January. This book also sounds interesting, but I've had The Glass Woman a lot longer than I've had this one. So we'll get to this one eventually too. All right, now let's go ahead and look at our Kindle book choices, and I'm going to see which ones are set in winter from that. All right, we have 2 options here. We have Cold Mountain by Charles Fraser, which is obviously a pretty famous book, and we have Snow Angel Cove by Ray Ann Thane. So Cold Mountain was published in 1997. It's based on local histories and family story, and follows the tale of a wounded Confederate soldier who walks away from the ravages of war and back home to his pre-war sweetheart. Actually, I don't know if this is set in winter, so never mind. All right, the only book I know for sure that is set in winter, well, there's a second one technically, but I'm hoping to save that for a different prompt, is Snow Angel Cove by Ray Ann Thane. Thane? Yes, Thane. And this is book 1 in her Haven Point series, which is I'm laughing because I realized I wrote the published date in here was 2104, not 2014. Anyway, this book is book 1 in Haven Point. It's one of those romance series, contemporary romance series. And this one follows Eliza Hayward, who job she pinned her dreams on is now going up in smoke, literally, and now she's stuck in a unfamiliar, if breathtaking, small town. So tech genius Aiden Kane ends up rescuing Eliza by putting the renovation of his lakeside guest lodge in her hands. And then he starts to realize how quickly he may fall for her. And is he willing to risk hoping for a Yuletide romance that could lead to forever? So just kind of like a contemporary, it is a little Christmassy romance, but it's set in winter. So we will add this book to our TBR. All right, let's go ahead and do our 7th roll. All right, this time we got a bigger number. We got a 15, moving way far ahead on the board, and we landed on our yearly TBR jar. So here's our yearly TBR jar. This has my 25 books I want to read in 2025 in it. If you haven't seen the video, check it out. I go through how I chose the books using a bunch of different categories related to tea, which was really fun for me. And I'm excited to read all of these. So this is the first time we're pulling from this jar. So all 25 books are in here, and I'll be happy to knock one of them off of the list this month. Or next month, technically, January. All right, let's go ahead and see what we get. First book from our 25 and 25 jar. All right, here we go. Put on the lid. All right, so this is our first 25 books in 2025. And it is The Guest List by Lucy Foley. All right, so this book I added to my 25 books to read in 2025 as part of the Badly Made Tea is a Criminal Offense category, which is a category composed of mystery and thrillers. And this is a book that is set off on an island off the coast of Ireland, where there is this big fancy wedding that is being held, and in the morning, one of the guests end up dead. So now it's time to solve that mystery. It was a Goodreads winner for Mystery Thriller in 2020 as well, and I've been wanting to read a book by Lucy Foley and haven't gotten to it, so I figure this will be a good one to start out my journey to see if I enjoy her writing or not. So that is our first book we're going to read off of our 25 books to read in 2025 list, so I'm excited about that. All right, on to our 8th roll of the game. Alright, this time we got a 3, but we have passed almost anything that could move us backwards, so that is good. And we ended up on the snowmen. So let's grab that bag and draw our next prompt for this game. Alright, here is our snowman bag with snowmen on it. In here, actually I don't know what we have in here. Alright, in here we have books that have to do with prompts that, not books. We have cards, oh my gosh. We have prompts that have to do with the title of the book. There we go. We also have some miscellaneous prompts and some serious prompts as usual. So let's go ahead, mix these up, and see what we get for our next prompt of the game. We are getting so close to coming to the end. All right, here we go. Let's split it there. And our prompt is going to be a series prompt, and it is the Miss Marple series. So this is a Agatha Christie series, and I am on the 2nd book in this series. The first book was just a bunch of short stories that Miss Marple was presented with a crime and was able to solve it. So I think this is like the first actual novel. So this one is The Murder at the Vicarage. So the person in this book that was murdered was Colonel Prothero, who sounds like he wasn't very well liked in this village where he lived. The parson had made a comment at a dinner that anyone who murdered Colonel Prothero would be doing the world at large a favor. And then he ends up being found dead in this parson's library, this clergyman's library. And Miss Marple is on the case and soon discovers that the whole village seems to have had a motive to kill Colonel Prothero. So that will be our 8th book on this TBR. All right, let's bring up the game board once again and do our 9th roll. All right, we rolled in 11, which means we have come to the end of the game board. Another TBR with just 9 books in it, which is amazing, especially for January where there aren't any big holidays that kind of take up time. So that is amazing. And also because a lot of these books are going to be able to end up hopefully on my winter reading game, which will make it even easier to finish this TBR. But the last thing that we have to do is pull a book out of our science fiction and fantasy award-winning / nominee books where they have either been awarded or nominated for a Hugo, Locust, Nebula, or Golden Duck Award, which is like the young adult middle grade award. So here's that jar. Usually there are 75 books in here. This month there's only 74 because I didn't want to replace the book that we drew last month, because I'm not positive I will finish it or not, so I want to be able to put it back in the jar if I didn't. So this month we only have 74 books to choose from instead of 75. Woohoo. All right, let's go ahead and pick this one. I'm going to go right here. All right. No idea what this book is going to be. I don't even remember what books are in there, honestly. All right, this is Singularity Sky by Charlie Stross. Hold a minute while I figure out what this book is about. I have heard of it, though. So that's the plus. So this book was a Hugo nominee back in 2004. It's also the first book in this author's Eschaton series. It's a science fiction book. And what the Eschaton is a sentient artificial intelligence that pushed Earth through the greatest technological evolution ever known, while warning that time travel is forbidden and transgressors will be eliminated. So that all happened in the 21st century. So now we are following distant descendants of this ultra high-tech Earth who live in parochial simplicity on the far-flung worlds of the New Republic, and their way of life is being threatened by the arrival of an alien information plague known as the Festival. Interesting name. And now forbidden technologies are literally dropped from the sky. Suppressed political factions descend into a revolutionary turmoil. A battle fleet is being sent from Earth to destroy the festival, but spaceship engineer Martin Springfield and UN diplomat Rachel Mansour have been assigned rather different tasks. And their orders are to either defuse the crisis or to sabotage the New Republic's war fleet, whatever the cost, before the Eschaton takes hostile action on a galactic scale. All right, I kind of follow that. So that will be our final book for this TBR. We ended up with 9 books, so not too bad. All right, so let's go through our prompt books first. We only have 3 physical books on this TBR, which is crazy. A lot of them are electronic, which is great because it's easier to travel with. But our books we will be reading in January 2025, we have Retelling of a Fairy Tale or Mythology. We'll be reading a Snow White retelling, either Sleep Like Death or Snow So White. For a book that matches the current season, we'll either be reading The Glass Woman or Snow Angel Cove. And for a debut book by an author, we'll either be reading Ghost in the Snow or Lost. All right, then we had a series prompt, which was the next book in the Miss Marple series, so we'll be reading The Murder at the Vicarage for that. Then we had from our series jar, The Red Scrolls of Magic, which is one of the books in the Mortal Instrument series. And we also drew from the series jar The Girl in the Tower by Catherine Arden, which is book 2 in the Winter Night trilogy. Then we had a pull from our 25 books to read in 2025, and that was the guest list. And we also had a jar pick from our new release jar, and that was The Peculiar Garden of Harriet Hunt that came out in December 2024. And then lastly, we had our pick from our Science Fiction Fantasy Award-winning nominee jar, and that was Singularity Sky by Charles Stross. So I think this is a great TBR. We have so many winter reads on here that I'm super excited about. And I think our jar polls did really well, and I'm excited to read all of those as well. It'll be nice to get another science fiction book onto the TBR also. So that's our January 2025 TBR. I think we're starting off the year well. Hopefully the game continues to be nice to us the rest of the year, but time will only tell. Like I said, in January, I am going to be doing a wintry reading game that is based on books that are set in winter. It's going to be pretty similar to the other games. There's just a couple of tweaks I'm making. We will have our cover jar that's going to have 50 book covers in it. Then we're going to have some prompt spin wheels where I can choose any book I want that fits that prompt. I'm not going to limit myself to the books I picked before I play the game like I have in the last couple of games, which have been fun and I've enjoyed doing that. But since the winter topic is so broad, I wanted to really be able to choose whatever I want. So I'm excited to play that game. Like I said, that will be coming out sometime in January. And I may also start a reading journal next year. So if I do that, you'll start seeing some videos on that as well. I think I'm going to be doing them for kind of like the monthly reading recap. All right, I think that's all I have right now. I hope everyone has had a wonderful holiday, enjoyed their holiday reads to get them into the seasonal spirit, and are ready to embark on this new year of 2025. Let me know what plans you have for your January 2025 reads, and let me know if you've read any of these books that are on this TBR in the comments below. I hope you've had fun watching this video as much as I have had playing it. It's definitely my favorite video to make each month, and I'm always looking forward to it at the end of every month to start playing the game. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you want to see future videos from me, including future TBR videos and future themed reading game videos as well, please hit the subscribe button below. And again, thank you so much for joining me for today's video, and I will see you in my next one. Bye!